Dr. Khan. I would also like to congratulate the entire English department and all faculty members and everyone else who is a part of this webinar. Also goes without a mention that the topic of webinar is very unique, relevant, and insightful. Now I would like to shift on my mother tongue, Hindi. I proud Hindi, and I will say a few words in Hindi also. ये बहुत खुशी का मौका है, मैं सभी का यहाँ हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ कॉलेज की तरफ से, स्पेशली हमारे कीनोट स्पीकर डॉक्टर खान साहब का, इस वेबिनार में जुड़े हुए सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स का, फैकल्टी मेंबर्स का, स्पेशली हमारी पैटर्न डॉक्टर जूनू सिंह मैम का, डॉक्टर फारूकी का, डॉक्टर वेदवान का, डॉक्टर पीसी कंबोडिया जी का, डॉक्टर राजकुमार जी का, डॉक्टर रमेश बैरवा जी का, डॉक्टर भरत जी का, डॉक्टर एन नागर जी का, डॉक्टर अशोक खटीक जी का, डॉक्टर मयंक गर्ग का, जो टेक्निकल कमेटी के रूप में और इंग्लिश डिपार्टमेंट के फैकल्टी मेंबर्स होने के नाते एक बड़े भव्य आयोजन को यहाँ पर कर रहे हैं। आई थिंक आप लोग मेरी बात हिंदी में समझ पा रहे होंगे। इट्स माय प्रिविलेज टू टॉक इन हिंदी। सो मैं आप सभी का यहाँ पर बहुत बहुत स्वागत करती हूँ, अभिनंदन करती हूँ और ऐसी शुभकामनाएं देती हूँ कि ये वेबिनार बहुत सफल और बहुत ऊंचाइयों को छुए। थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your generous words and your gracious presence here. Next, I would like to request Dr. Junu Singh, the chairperson, Department of English, and patron of the webinar, and also the chief host, to please deliver the welcome speech. Yes, Junu ma'am.
Please, Dr. Faruqi, please unmute. A very warm
Thank you, Dr. Faruqi. A very warm and cheerful good afternoon to all of you. We have been through a very hard time. We all have seen how a tiny speck of virus brought the entire world to a halt. Snatched away all the colors of our life, rainbow, and left us with just blues and grays. We all have been through a dark tunnel and with our lives hanging on an edge. But like a defeated soldier, this virus must retreat. So now we are taking baby steps before taking a giant leap in the new normal. This international webinar is one such thing in that direction. On behalf of the Department of English, I welcome you all on this international webinar on aspects of evaluation of teachers. First of all, I would like to welcome our principal and chief patron, Dr. Smita Mishra ji. She is a pillar of this institution and she is a great motivator. We welcome you, ma'am. I would now like to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Mubin Raza Khan Sahib, Assistant Professor, Department of Foreign Languages, Taif University, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We have heard so much good things about you, sir. How great teacher you are. What a superb human being you are. And today we have got a chance to meet and greet you, although on a virtual platform. A very warm and cheerful welcome to you, sir. Welcome is now extended to my faculty members. I welcome Dr. P.C. Cambodia ji, who is the convener of this international seminar, webinar. Dr. S.S. Vedwan, co-convener. Dr. U.A. Farooqui, organizing secretary. Dr. Mayank Garg, coordinator. And Mr. Rajkumar Meena, co-coordinator. I cannot move forward without a word of praise for my faculty members. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that I head a department of 5 gentlemen, 5 fine gentlemen. They are extremely learned and extremely talented, and they seamlessly work as a team. As the saying goes, teamwork makes dreams work. I welcome you all, my gentlemen. I now welcome the IT cell expert, Dr. N. Rajendra, and thank him for his immense help and support. For that matter, I thank the entire N. Rajendra ji's team. After welcoming all my wingless angels, I now welcome my members of other faculties, my colleagues and friends who have joined us on this digital platform. I welcome you all and thank you for your enthusiasm and your support. Last but not the least, welcome is extended to all the academically inclined and intellectually stimulated learners and scholars from various countries and regions. Thank you all for joining us and being a part of this academic festival. Again, a very warm and cheerful welcome to you all. And over to Dr. Farooqui. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your excellent welcome speech. टेक्निकल कमेटी के मेंबर्स से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहूँगा कि ये जो बीच में डिस्टरबेंस है जरा इसको एक बार देखें। शायद लोगों ने अपने जो माइक्स हैं वो म्यूट नहीं किए। प्लीज पुट देम ऑन द
अपने सब मोबाइल्स के ना जो वॉल्यूम है ना वो वापस आ रही है रिपीट होके, तो अपने इको हो रहा है, इसलिए अपने मोबाइल्स को वॉल्यूम स्पीकर्स है ना उनको स्पीकर्स को ऑफ करो। ये लीड अगर हो ना तो कानों पे लगा लें।
ओके, हाँ, आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट द पार्टिसिपेंट्स गैदर्ड ओवर हियर, प्लीज यूज द हेडफोन्स, ईयरफोन्स। ओके, ये एप्लीकेशन ऑफ फीचर्स में आता है, यहाँ पर अपनी किसी की आवाज नहीं आनी चाहिए वरना वो रिपीट हो जाएगी। ओके, thank you very much. It was an excellent welcome delivered by Dr. Junu Singh, the head of the department.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, my cherished participants, for joining us today for the webinar. Around 400 enthusiasts from within and outside the country have registered with us. We are thankful to you all for showing interest in the webinar. We will not linger you for long, so please be connected with us throughout the session. I must inform you right at the outset that we have only one presenter today. Therefore, the participants may get sufficient time and ample opportunity to interact with the keynote speaker and also with the worthy colleagues seated over here. Most of us connected today are either teachers or would-be teachers. Therefore, we all shall benefit from the worthy speaker's lecture today. I must share this fact that Dr. Mubin Azhar Khan has been a teacher's trainer and a teacher's evaluator in schools, colleges, and universities of Saudi Arabia. Thus, the topics, class observation, and evaluation of teachers are his forte, his fields of specialization. I'm sure his presentation will be a great learning experience for all of us. Well, before I request Dr. Khan to present his presentation, let me take this opportunity to formally introduce Dr. Mubin Azhar Khan, the keynote speaker, to you. Dr. Mubin Azhar Khan is currently working as an assistant professor of English at the Department of Foreign Languages at Taif University, Taif, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Dr. Khan got his MPhil and PhD degrees from Aligarh Muslim University, obtained his PGCTE, postgraduate certificate in teaching of English from Hyderabad, and has attended and completed the summer program in English literature from the University of Oxford, UK. Dr. Khan has completed a trainer training course from the British Council, Saudi Arabia. He has also taken over half a dozen courses on classroom management, teaching language skills and evaluation conducted by Cambridge University Press and Cambridge English Language Assessment. In his previous job as an academic coordinator at King Abdul Aziz University, Jeddah, he did faculty evaluation of overall professional performance and conducted coaching sessions, managed faculty support services, and mentored the new faculty. Dr. Mubin Azhar Khan has got more than 25 years of teaching experience and has done classroom observation of more than 100 teachers hitherto. Dear participants, this was just a brief introduction of the keynote speaker. I selected only the relevant portion from his curriculum vitae, which runs into 10 pages. We are indeed delighted to have many such scholars connected with us today, and therefore let us share a word about the topic too. Dear young friends, in every walk of life, the evaluation process occurs in one or the other form. If the evaluation process is eliminated from human life, then perhaps life's aim may be lost. It is only through evaluation that one can discriminate between good and bad. The whole cycle of social development revolves around the evaluation process. I request Dr. Vedwan, the Associate Professor of English, to shed light on the topic of the webinar. Yes, Dr. Vedwan.
Hello, dignitaries. Welcome to this virtual platform of English webinar today. And as Dr. Farooqi has already told you that today we'll discuss some of the aspects of evaluation of a teacher and the student also. Evaluation, dear friends, as you all know, is an ongoing continuous process. And if we talk especially with reference to India, and how this evaluation process started in the 1980s in the Europe, Britain, and USA. It has now percolated to India also. And in India, as you all know, we have the MHRD at the top. Then we have different bodies, NCERT for the schools, evaluation and training of the teachers, and we have the UGC for higher education to lay rules and regulations and also for comprehensive evaluation of teachers through NAC and also through different IASE, the Institute of Advanced Studies. The number is 32 in India. And if we talk of the evaluation through teachers in school, we have DIETS and we also have the state education centers in different states, 28 to be precise. Evaluation, as you all know, dear friends, it helps teachers and learners to improve teaching and learning together. And some of the important aspects that can be evaluated is the class management of the teacher. How a teacher manages his class. his body language in the teacher while he is presenting his lecture or managing his class. It all matters. Then the values that he inculcates in his students. And nowadays, he is evaluated, the teacher, he is evaluated through his result also. What is his result? So, his self-appraisal, his self-assessment, and assessment in private management colleges through the management, and in government through various bodies. And now, in India, evaluation system has been introduced in colleges through IQAC, the internal quality assessment program which is going on through the colleges. And government of Rajasthan, it has also now started the Gyan Ganga program that initiates to uplift the professional skills of the teacher and then to pass on these skills to the learner, that is the student. In education, dear colleagues, we aim to improve the child, and we are determined as a profession, as a professional teacher, we are determined to make our child, make our student determined, learn it, and to grow all through his skills and also to achieve his aims in life. This is our goal. And education, is an investment we are putting on in our students, and evaluation helps build an educational program and assesses its achievements and improve its effectiveness also. In a way, we can say that in education, in teaching and learning process, it is inevitable if a teacher is not effective. Teacher evaluation is concerned with assessing the effectiveness of teaching strategies, methods and techniques of the teacher, and also it provides feedback to the teacher through student feedback form and also through the management. The learners, they are important assets to us, and we as professional teachers, we should provide our best and inculcate in our learners the best we can afford to. If we sum up, all teachers' evaluation aims is to present teachers with a complete feedback on the accomplishing capacity of their teaching procedure in the light of the planning of their lessons, how they plan their lessons. Each teacher must necessarily have a lesson plan. It is a blueprint that teachers must possess for effective teaching. When the teacher follows a well-planned out and structured lesson plan, it is easier for the student to grab it, and he will never fail in his life after learning through these tools. He or she will be able to teach more systematically and thus help in the proper development of the student and in the process the growth of the teacher. The higher education bodies and also the management of different schools, colleges and IT sector, they demand professionalism from the upcoming young generation. And this professionalism, it can be inculcated into our young buddies through a professional teacher and the tools he used in the classroom. So this topic, the present topic, aspect of evaluation of a teacher, which will be deliberated on by Professor Riza, is of utmost importance, and I now again welcome you all and hand over the mic to Dr. Faruqi for further deliberations of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Vedwan. That was really a very elaborate introduction to the topic. Thank you so much. I think he took it very seriously. I said in the beginning that we have only one presenter today, and we really thank you for that. Okay. The limitation that we had, you have fulfilled that limitation. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sir, Dr. Vedwan sir. Lo, the moment has arrived which we have been eagerly waiting for. Yes, without any further delay, I request Dr. Mubin Raza Khan to please present his presentation. Dr. Mubin Raza Khan. Over to you, Dr. Khan. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Yes.
Thank you very much. Hope I am audible to all of you.
Yes, you're clearly audible to us. Nicely audible to us.
Chief Patron.
You can do one thing. You can reduce the volume just a little. But this is all right now. This is all right.
Is it all right now?
Yeah, this is fine. This is fine.
Okay. Thank you very much. Chief Patron and Principal Dr. Smita Mishra. Patron Dr. Junu Singh. Convener Dr. PC Cambodia. Co-convener Dr. SS Vedwan. Organizing Secretary Dr. Ubaid Akram Farooqi. Coordinator Mr. Dr. M.R. Garg. Co-coordinator Mr. Rajkumar Meena. Distinguished guests, my fellow teachers, friends, and dear students. A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm extremely pleased to be invited by the college to my homeland, India, to speak in the webinar on teachers evaluation as keynote speaker. It is a virtual homecoming to Rajasthan, which is very dear to me for its tourist attractions, traditional cuisine, and a rich cultural heritage. I thank you all for having me. And I thank all the management committee people who have organized this seminar for their kind words and for their warm welcome and a virtual bouquet on my side and a literal bouquet on your side. Thank you very much. Now moving on to today's topic, I would like to share my presentation. Could you allow me to share my screen? I request the host to kindly enable sharing screen from my side. I'm requesting the host. I think right now the host is Principal Ma'am, and can I request the technical team to allow me to share my screen?
Yes, okay. Yes, Dr. Garg, can we have the keynote speaker's screen shared with the participants?
I think the host has to allow screen sharing.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Dr. Raza, I think you will have to share your screen yourself.
Yeah, now it's okay. Now it's okay. Working.
Okay, thank you.
So as was already mentioned in detail by the professor about the evaluation of teachers. So my topic today is aspects of teachers evaluation. And we'll be talking about three things in detail. I have 45 minutes and I hope to complete all of this in 45 minutes. I have divided this into three parts. One is about online mode and evaluation, where I would talk about why evaluation is important. And in the given circumstances in which we all are, why it is all the more important that we should start doing evaluation at our institution, whether it is a requirement from the top or not. In the second part, I'll talk about planning and teachers' traits. And in the third part, I'll be talking about the actual instructions, meaning what goes inside the classroom. So right now, as we have seen that most institutions were moved to virtual mode because of COVID. But this was not the case that nobody had any background in distance learning or some kind of correspondence learning or some kind of virtual mode. Many universities already had it. For example, in the Gulf countries where I'm presently working in Saudi Arabia, and I have been teaching on virtual mode uh, since 2007. So it is like 13 years. Students, they know how to use the platform. The universities here have, Blackboard. So for some, it was a smooth sailing. But for other institutions all over the world, it came like, a jerk start. It was a tough beginning indeed. So consequently, what happened, though the teaching was done on online mode, but it was not always live. It was not always live. Many teachers resorted to, sending pre-recorded videos. Some established their YouTube channel and they started broadcasting on that. The problem with recorded videos is that if you are not having classes as per schedule, there will not be any interaction like we have in the classroom, and it will not be compulsory for the student to attend your lecture. If it is not recorded, like some kind of attendance is required, or you provide some material which would be there in the exam, then the student will not be like eager or motivated to to listen to the pre-recorded video, because if the topic is there, the curricula is there, she can always go to some expert which is available for free. And that is the reason why for the teachers at this point, it is very important to look at the aspects of class observation, like what goes inside the classroom, like how we can make our teaching more fruitful for students, right? More rewarding for them and relevant for them. It is everybody's hunch, and I also have a belief that in future this mode is going to stick. Like we have online shopping, like we have virtual payment system these days. Initially when it was started, maybe there are some people who are not very comfortable in paying online, but this mode is there. So similarly, even after COVID, this would be a thing, which everybody would be following. So what will happen? There would be some partial requirement of virtual classes even after this pandemic is over. Right now, the main problem with online teaching is examination, because in the examination it is very difficult to proctor it, to make sure that it has not been taken, copied from some sources. This is one of the major problems, but many companies are working on AI through artificial intelligence. They are trying their best to make the examination foolproof for all regular students. Maybe they can have 360 degree cameras or video recording or whatever, but we are going to have it. There is another issue with the online teaching right now, the virtual mode, and that is regarding royalty. Because people are, I mean, teachers are, recruited. Uh, I'm talking about international scenario. In India, most universities and colleges have permanent faculty. Uh, they have full timers, but in the world, this is not the case. The universities are run on contractual basis. They are run on part-time basis, right? So teachers, so for example, if a particular college or university has hired a teacher for one academic year, now everything is there on the system of the university, because most universities have a virtual platform, right, which they have they have subscribed to from the companies, right, from the IT companies. So they have in store everything that was done throughout the semester or throughout the year by a particular teacher. If that university tries to use the same material, what will happen of the teachers? Uh, in my opinion, one third of the teaching staff can handle the problems that are faced by the students if that recording of the last year is used. So it is very important that we go online, we conduct virtual classes, right? This is a thing of this is a thing which a legal expert would talk about. So I'm just hinting towards a tough competition days ahead, and the issue of employability and recruitment of teachers.
इसमें आएगा disconnect.
Since am I audible? Is there any problem? I hope it is okay. Am I audible to all? So relevance of evaluation for students. Right now, we have in attendance many students who are pursuing their MA and BA in English. So what is the relevancy of evaluation for students? Well, most of the people who are pursuing MA in English, they have a future career in teaching. And most likely they'll be English teachers, people who are doing MA in English. All over the world, uh, language is taught more than literature. So they'll end up being an English language teacher, English language professor, or maybe specializing in applied linguistics or linguistics, right? TESOL, TESEL. So all of these are in currency. So for them, it is important to see a future where there will be a cutthroat competition. And as I said before, that permanent positions are dwindling day by day. And in India also, there might be a day when everybody who is teaching at universities may not be a permanent faculty. There would be more contractual positions, in any university or college. And the renewal, because it will be contractual position, so the renewal of the contract would depend on your performance in the classroom. So, you might have teachers sitting in some other countries and be on the, role of the university, because some faculty can stay out of the country and they can teach virtually. So for a student who will be teachers in say next 5 years or 10 years, it is going to be slightly difficult, and you have to have the minute things that happen in the classroom. Like we had call centers, sorry, we had call centers in the past, in the last decade. So we may have something like that in education sector also in the next years to come. As professor has already talked about the relevancy of evaluation for teachers, everywhere teachers have resisted class observation because it is their domain. When they are in the classroom, when they close the door, uh, you know even if the senior administration has to enter their class, they need to take permission. That is teachers' territory. And that is the reason why many had objected to installation of cameras in the classrooms. But since now virtual teaching is going on, you are already being monitored by many. You are not in that four walls of the classroom. Whether it is done with your knowledge or without your knowledge, right? Uh, you are being evaluated by all stakeholders now. Basically, the purpose of observation is for self-appraisal, for self-development. But at times, the institutions use uh, the result of the observation for promotion and for contract renewal if the faculty is not permanent. It is also an opportunity to reflect on her teaching, on her methodology, on her communicative skills, and the overall classroom environment. So this presentation would focus on aspects that are generally looked at when an observer enters your class. What are generally the points, the areas that are being looked at by the observer, on which he or she awards you a grade. There is a scale and a grade, and then everything is calculated and a final score is achieved. But here we'll be talking about areas which are, number one, seen by the evaluator, number two, which as teachers we should focus on in our day-to-day teaching, because ultimately the purpose for this presentation is to make ourselves aware of things that go within our classroom. Actually, in India, uh, I was teaching in India like 20 years ago. Many things have changed, but still I try to, keep a track of the new developments in education and other things too, uh, because obviously we are connected to our home. But even now, I have seen that if a student has cleared a GRF exam or a NET exam, he or she, after the interview, can be recruited to teach. In my time, there was no compulsory pre-posting training for an assistant professor or like lecturer. That was called in the past. Uh, it was thought that a particular student who is obviously good because that has been certified by the UGC. Now we have a new authority, for conducting NET examination. and JRF scholarship. Uh, Earlier, it used to be done by UGC and then by CBSC. So now we have national, you know, testing authority. So it is thought that a particular student has seen his teacher teach and has observed the people, right, especially his teachers, and she would pick up from the teacher. But observation is not that specific. For example, if I just ask you in the room in which you are, whether it is your office or a lecture hall or your home, wherever you are sitting, without looking around, if you could tell me how many tube lights are there, how many bulbs are there in that room, or for example, how many windows are there, how many doors are there. So you will not be so sure. Means something you see every day, but you have not minutely looked at it because these were not the things. You did not count how many tube lights are there on the top, right, or on the wall. Similarly, you might be in your kitchen every day, but if I ask you what is the height of the slab and how high is your, cupboard from the slab, right? How many tiles are there between the slab and the cupboard? Maybe once you go back, you might look at things. Oh, there are 2 tiles or 3 tiles. But until and unless you are asked specific questions, in general observation, these things are not noted. Now we'll come to type of observation, right? I'll try to cover aspects of observation, aspects of evaluation, and each aspect uh, is so detailed that it would require a separate workshop on that. But since we are covering everything for this, session, so I would try to touch upon the important aspects, right? So type of observation, like one is informal observation, where the same sheet, the same sheet is taken by the observer to the classroom, but it is not recorded in the teacher's file, right? Whereas in formal observation, all the aspects are looked at and they are recorded, put in his file, and it is used for promotion or for, you know, professional development of the teacher. And whenever observation is done, there is a pre-observation meeting with the teacher where the observer sits down with the teacher, where the teacher has a lesson plan and they discuss, and the teacher tells in detail about the type of students he has, the type of content that he or she would be taking up in that observed class, if there are any issues. So it's like getting to know, and the observer tries to explain to the teacher what are the specific areas where he or she would be marked, and they discuss the sheet and all the criterias and the rubric, right? And then there is actual observation. After the observation, during the observation, the observer generally takes notes, right? And then there is a feedback. So generally it is recommended that the feedback should be given as early as possible. Uh, the observer takes time because, mm, there are so many notes, right? Generally, if the class is of 1 hour and a half, like uh, 80 minutes class or 90 minutes class, there are notes in that run into pages, right? So the observer has to sit down and sort out the pages and then give feedback to the teacher. and they discuss, and then the area of development is chalked out. We'll talk about that in a bit. Then there is unannounced observation. For formal and informal observation, the date is already given. The teacher knows that the observer would come for this time, for this duration, and the observer generally is there for the entire session, right? In order to know what goes on in the classroom, it is recommended that the observer should sit for the entire lesson, right? Unannounced observation are not encouraged. They are not professional, right? Uh, and then there is peer observation. Peer observation, when you invite your colleague to come and watch you teach in the classroom. It is again done to improve oneself, right? So this could be a good beginning, right? The most important thing in any observation is lesson plan. When an observer is looking at the lesson plan, this is even before the actual observation, right? Generally, the lesson plan is submitted well in time, like a day before uh, the observation day. And in that lesson plan, he looks at things whether the lesson objectives match with the course learning outcome, right? So whatever course is being taught, there are course learning outcomes. And obviously, we know that course learning outcomes are attached to program learning outcomes. Program learning outcomes are attached, or matched with the institution uh, learning outcomes. So uh, the observer looks at the objectives, whether the stated objectives are realistic, whether they can be achieved during that particular class time. Are they specific, right? Is there logical progression between stages? Number one, stages are mentioned. For example, if a teacher says that it is a reading class, and he would try to make them skim and scan, right, in this particular reading class. And then he also says that towards the end of the class, he would ask his student to write something. So if there are separate stages with time in the lesson plan or not, this is looked at. Whether the stages are having a kind of logical progression, whether the time is stated. I mean, it is not always important that you know the teacher has to stick with the time given in each stage, but then he should have an idea how much time would each stage take. Whether the other point is that the student talk time and teacher talk time, is there a balance? It would vary depending on the kind of lesson a teacher is given on a particular day. But then uh, a good lesson plan should have pair work, should have group work, and it should not be just for the sake of being there, right? There should be activities, right? And towards the end of the lesson, there should be some kind of assessment by the teacher to see whether the stated objectives have been achieved or not. And obviously, all plans have to be flexible so that they could be tweaked, right? The other important area is classroom management. As we all know that the teacher has to have a very good rapport with his student, right? And one has to be very friendly, to be patient, and the teacher has to be sensitive to the needs of the learner, and at the same time to the level of the learner, because in one class there might be different levels, right? If there is time in the end, I would like to show you one sample lesson plan which was submitted while I was doing class observation. And it is really a model kind of, I consider it to be one of the best lesson plan. And I have taken teachers' permission in writing that I could use this in this particular webinar. So if there is time, I have to look at the time. It is so whenever I'm near like 10 minutes, could somebody please tell me that now you have 10 minutes left? The classroom environment.
Yes, Dr. Raza, I would like to interrupt here. You may go ahead with the lesson plan. We would like to see it.
Okay, thank you very much. So kind of you. So I'll take that lesson plan towards the end. I'll try to show that. Uh, so the teacher, in order to develop and build rapport with his student or with her student, should try to remember names and address them by their names, right? This works all the time. And there are issues of bad behaviors from a student at times. But it is generally believed and it is tested with time that if a teacher is honest, if the teacher is sincere, he has integrity of purpose, and he is devoted, his class would be very well behaved. And respect has to be earned. If you respect your students, they'll respect you in return, right? In classroom management, we also look at how the teacher is using the class space. Obviously, this works when we are teaching in the classroom, not on virtual platform. So sometime, depending on the exercise, a teacher want to put them in group, sometime in pairs, sometime the class is divided into two facing each other, sometime backs at each other, like facing in the opposite, not uh, towards the walls, right? So depends on the, or sometime like an enemy corner, right? Half the class in the corner, the other half in the other corner. Sometime like a semicircle, right? And the teacher in the center. So it would depend on the kind of activity you are doing. In language class, generally the seats have to be unbolted. They should not be fixed so that it is easy to work out the way you want it to be done, right? And when we distribute our students in the groups, care should be taken that in every group, the level is almost similar. And when you have a group, do not make the leader of the group one particular student all the time. Divide the roles amongst them. Make everybody feel that she is important. For a teacher, it is very important, and this goes, for all subject teachers. Whatever language you are using, you have to use a standard language. For English teachers, obviously, there should not be any kind of grammatical slips. There should be, teacher has to be very fluent in speaking. There should be accuracy in pronunciation. When I say accuracy in pronunciation, you don't have to ape, RP or American, whatever accent you have it, but it should meet international standard. Like, there are varieties of English. We all know about that, but it should be intelligible to an international audience. So we should try to achieve that, which is easy these days with YouTube and with all these pronunciation practices, like even the dictionary, you can get the right pronunciation of the word, right? So these days we don't very much depend on the phonetic symbols. We can hear, we can listen, and copy. a good teacher takes care of the level of her student, like what kind of words he is using in the classroom. If it is, for example, level 1. When I say level 1, I mean A1, European framework. So if it is a level 1 class, your selection of words has to be different from level 3 class. Level 3 is B1, right? Or generally in India, we call intermediate level. Level 1, we say beginner, level 2, elementary. So, and your speech has to be, graded, and then it should have a pace, right? You should use appropriate gestures. Your body language is also important, which is looked at by the observer. Voice modulation is also important, right? You should have a lively intonation so that even though at times, professors are tired, but when they go to a new class, like to a second or third class of the day, they look very happy, they look full of energy, because this is how you motivate your student. Like if you are looking lethargic, how can you motivate your student, right? So you should have right intonation, and this elevates the mood of the class, right? Without being said, the teacher has to be well prepared, should do proper research, right, and should be updated, because this is the time of Wikipedia, of Google, right? So when these days even the medical doctors are having this issue, when a patient goes to them, he knows about his problems because he has done enough research on that. So some of my friends who are in this profession, they say that they recommend their patient to read about their disease, and then it helps the doctor also to explain easily. So your students are aware of the latest developments that are happening all over the world. You are teaching students who are of this millennium, right? They are on the net, always connected, right? They are on Instagram, they are on Facebook, they are on YouTube, they are on Twitter, right? So they are updated. So you have to be well researched, and you have also to use technology in your classroom, right? You have to incorporate technology, right? And you see, I generally hear from my colleagues, they say that we are of this generation, this is not our cup of tea. No, look at Steve Jobs, right? Look at all the people who are involved in innovation and research, right? They are senior people, right? So your generation has developed all these things, so you have to learn, and learning never ends, right? In the classroom, uh, when an observer is there, he looks at the warm-up activities, what a teacher does engage his students, how he introduces the topic, how he draws on the previous knowledge of the students, right? And how he contextualize the topic under study with the real life situations, right? So this motivates them. This makes student enthusiastic in your lesson. And your instructions have to be very clear, have to be concise. You don't have to beat about the bush. If there is an exercise which require, pair work. Suppose you have a student A, a student B, and student A would ask questions, B would answer them, and then vice versa. So instead of explaining this whole thing, which will take a lot of time, it would be good to ask a student to come in the front of the class. You role play as student A, he is student B, you show one example and ask them to do. So instructions are very important, right? They should not take, sometimes the instructions are more difficult than the exercise itself. So please uh, keep a note, right? In a good lesson, the goals of the lesson are stated in the beginning, and they are, summed up towards the end. So summing up of the lesson is also very important. What you have done today, what we could achieve, what we will keep for the future class, and please prepare for this, right? And we talked about the assessment test in order to know whether whatever you did in the class was achieved or not. Then use of questioning techniques, right? Don't please ask, did you understand or do you understand? They will always say yes. Ask a specific question. So the right kind of concept check question should be asked. We talked about information check questions. There could be a whole workshop and CCQs and ICQs, right? Sometimes the problem with teachers, with us, is that we explain too much, and this makes the class boring, right? The student knows. So you should try to understand when you are eliciting answers from the student, you know the exact level, you know their understanding, you know their prior knowledge. So you would not be repeating something which they already know. Activities in the classroom are very important, right? If you are teaching from the student book, generally it has got exercises embedded in that book, but or there is a workbook. But if there is none, then you have to have some activities so that that the students are engaged and they are achieving something in the classroom. So your classroom should not only be a way for them to tell what they should do, but that time should also be used to learn, right? That is the time for them to learn. So when your class finishes, they should be in a better position than they were when the class began, right? Teaching strategies, most of you know, and I'm pretty sure I have seen some of the videos of Dr. Ubaid Akram Faruqi on YouTube. They are very good videos, and he went in detail about the teaching methods and methodologies. So if you are a student or you are a teacher, I mean, you know what kind of strategy, what kind of method works for your class or for that particular activity. It could be blended learning, it could be, but you should try to be innovative and use the right strategy for your class, right? Generally, we use communicative language approach when we are dealing with our language learners, right? And try to bring in varieties in methods, right? Try to change. Monitoring of the learner while you are giving them activity is very important. It should be continuous, right? It should not be that you are neglecting a particular corner or the backbenchers, or some people try to focus on a particular group or some of their favorite students. When a class observer comes in the classroom, he looks at these things, whether the teacher was moving, looking at each and every group, whether he was motivating his students, was there some student who was left out, or a particular group was left out, or he was constantly positioned at one group. Sometimes it becomes uncomfortable for your student if you are standing next to him, and this goes true in the examination also. So you might have noticed that some teachers, some instructors, some professors look at when student is writing his exam. So this should be discouraged. In the classroom, the teacher, while the activity is going on, while the exercise is being done, he should look around. He should not talk, right? Whatever talking you have to do, you should do that. You should give instruction before you give the handout or the worksheet. But once the worksheet is given, do not talk to all. You can talk to the specific group or a particular student who might be struggling with that, and your time should be divided in the class. Coming to a very important aspect, it is teachers' talk time. Generally, teachers have this issue of talking too much, right? And today I'm doing most of the talk, so spare me for that. But then generally we talk too much. But in a language class, the effort should be done to move our class from teacher centric to student centric. And the teacher should try to be focused. Whatever plan he has given to the evaluator, he should stick. Even in his daily class, the teacher should have a plan. And this is a sample that I put and this is the only sample I put in the slide because I was conscious of the time. I'll try to go through this, sample fast. This is adapted from S. Deller, Lesson from the Learner book, and you can see in the reference section. And this was used in Oxford Teacher Academy trainers training. So I have taken from there. For example, there are 3 columns. Done by the teacher always, done by the teacher sometimes, usually, and done by the student usually. And then there is one more column which is not seen, which said done by the students always. Just think about these points as I read them. Who chooses the topic in your class? Teacher always, teacher usually, sometimes teacher, sometimes student, student usually, or student always. For example, who chooses the activities? Who prepares the material for the activities? Who do the student speak to mostly? Who do the student look at during class time? Who chooses the seating arrangement and chooses group members? Who moves the chairs and tables? Who operates the equipment? Who gives the instructions and explanation? Who asks questions, responds, and gives feedback? Who writes information, questions, and answers on the board? Who answers questions asked by the students? Who repeats what has been said if the others haven't heard it or if there is a mistake? Who gives dictations? Who decides the homework? So generally you would find that most of the column would be sometimes, or teacher always. All these things can also be done by the students, right? So try to think of that. Providing feedback is very important. And when I say feedback, I'm talking about teacher providing feedback to the students in the classroom, right? Whatever is produced in the class, try to give a combined feedback. At times, it is not easy if you have like 40, 50 students to give individual feedback, because whatever work has been done should be assessed quickly. A teacher with experience can do that, and whatever feedback you give it, you could use the board. It should be clear and it should be constructive. We should never try to discourage our students. Whatever you are using, if you are using Blackboard or whiteboard or PowerPoint presentation in your class, if you have computer or like PPP, so your board should be neat, eh, and it should be organized. It should be legible even from the distance. You should go back from time to time and see how your board looks like. If you are not legible, if you are not organized, a student who are taking notes, they would also be unorganized, right? But the use of board should be discrete. Don't put everything there, right? So try to, when you are brainstorming, for example, put the points there. If you're explaining something, use the board. If you're illustrating something, use the board. If you're doing correction, which is valid for a majority of students, and you think that this point is not well understood, do the correction, right? Give the feedback. Uh, do not, keep writing on the board and turning your back towards the student most of the time. And, don't waste class time in writing too much on the board, right? So in today's presentation, I tried, you know, to bring home the point that observation is important for us as a teacher, for our development, to reflect on our teaching. Believe it or not, you are always evaluated by your teacher, by your students. They speak about you amongst their friend circle, to their parents, and also in the society. Right? In the society also, always the best teacher is known in the neighborhood. If you have a college, outside the college there's market, you ask. I mean, obviously, if you're a teacher, they will not tell you, but they will know who is the best teacher in, which subject. So they always evaluate you. And since now the door has been opened, the walls are removed from your classroom. You are teaching on a virtual mode. So you are being assessed. Since you are being assessed, we should focus on our development, and we should start implementing classroom observation informally, or like there should be a beginning, maybe from the peers, right? Your friends can start. I have a firm opinion and a belief that observation should be done for professional development, because in the feedback, if a particular teacher is not so confident in a particular aspect, then the trainer, or for example the observer, generally the observer is the senior most faculty, or one who has taken special training for that, uh, would give you a kind of area for improvement, area for developing yourself, by recommending certain, literature to read on that particular. I have a list of important books which I have made use of to in the reference section also. So basically, class observation should be done for professional development, right? So these are the references, and I would also like to share with you the lesson plan which I promised. Just bear with me for a sec. I'm trying to. Yeah. Yeah, here it is. So this lesson plan was submitted to me by a teacher, and the level is mentioned here. Course level CEFR, uh, Common European Framework reference is like A2 elementary, and the course type the teacher has mentioned integrated skills, and the focus here is on reading uh, and vocabulary, which can lead to speaking and writing. So this is not the main thing. It can lead to, like we talked about, logical progression, right? And the context is restaurant, and the class type is mixed ability, and the teacher is saying that the primary objective, lesson objective, is to give a student practice in reading for skimming and for scanning, and also to have fluency practice through group work. So that is the primary. Secondary objectives are also mentioned, and these are the course objectives that he has mentioned here, which is there in the syllabus. So he's trying to say that this objective is related or linked to the course objective, which is mentioned there. So nothing is given in the class which is not related, right? And then he has some personal teaching aims. The teacher was, Dr. M. Shah. So Dr. Shah is saying that his personal teaching aims, he has written, mentioned to give clear, simple instruction, to use simple language enunciation. You may ask why to write, but then writing in the plan means that the teacher is aware of these things and he is conscious of what goes in the classroom and what kind of goals he has set for himself, right? For example, to utilize multiple means to help out weak and slow learners, focus on the student teaching, talk time, sorry, and reduce teacher talk time. Material he has mentioned, assumed learner's knowledge, because he knows his students, and that's why it's a mixed ability class. So he says that although it is like A2, but then the level is between A1 and B1. And from here, the target vocabulary he's trying to introduce. For example, I'll just look at one item. He says ninja, person trained in Japanese martial art or karate, but then he is not giving them meaning directly. He's showing them visuals and using CCQs. For example, he will ask, is it a kind of a sports or self-defense system? Is it easy or difficult to learn? Is it like a kind of martial art popular in Japan or in China? They are not yes-no questions, right? All. One is yes-no, two are, like they have to answer. Then general classroom challenges and solutions here. So he has looked at each and every aspect. For example, interesting, students use mobile phone in the class. Teacher will politely ask students to follow the class rules. Learning problems and the solution, and then here is the plan, stages and procedures. So here he has divided into 3 columns. First is sequence of learning. What kind of interaction is there, teacher student, or a student like a student to student, which will come later, and his notes. For example, warming up, and then presentation, pre-reading stage. So he's not giving them something to read, but he has a kind of lead in, and then he's pre-teaching vocabulary, and then consolidating concepts of freshly learned vocabulary which he has taught. And then he's trying to ask predicting, he's trying to ask a student to predict the content of the text. What does the topic mean? What are you going to read? So like then practice and evaluation, sequence of learning, teachers notes are there to look at, time is also given, then feedback is there, and tell us about the last visit to your favorite restaurant in Doha, for example. So, he's trying to look at different aspects, and he has tried to address them all in the lesson plan. And he has also made a note that a student might complete it as homework, like so, because he's taking them from reading to speaking to writing. So obviously all of this cannot be finished in 90 minutes. So he says that after brainstorming, he can pass it on as homework, right? Board plan is also, given. So that is all I wanted to, talk about today about teachers' evaluation and observation. Obviously, these two things are interrelated. As I said earlier, I would recommend starting teachers' evaluation, not for the sake of evaluation, but for self-appraisal at your college. Now, I pass on to Dr. Ubaid Akram Faruqi, and I think the floor would be open for question and answer session. On to Dr. Ubaid Akram Faruqi. I think you are mute, Dr. Ubaid.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me now. Is it okay?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mubin. It was indeed a phenomenal presentation. There's some disturbance? Okay, he's trying to adjust it. Yeah. Yeah, it was really great listening to you. It was indeed a phenomenal presentation. This is what I said. Here I have summed up something like which was focused upon by Dr. Mubin Raza in his lecture. Dr. Khan focused upon the importance of observation of teachers for evaluation purposes. Classroom observation that teachers generally resist has become a reality as most learning and teaching have moved to virtual platforms because of the pandemic. He pointed out, consequently, lessons are already recorded in one form or the other and are accessed beyond the four walls of the classroom. Dr. Khan pointed out that for the students of BA and MA in English, they must be familiar with class observation since they would be taking up a career in teaching when competition would be further stiff, as online teaching might attract candidates from far and wide. It is mostly believed that online teaching mode might be retained partially even after we go back to classroom teaching. For teachers, classroom observation is an essential tool for self-appraisal and self-development. Through peer observation or by a professional class observer, evaluation provides an opportunity for a teacher to reflect on his methodology, communicative skills, and classroom environment. Dr. Khan also shed light on how lessons should be planned, prepared, and analyzed. He reflected on classroom management for setting up an effective and cordial learning environment. He talked about how to form questions, give instructions for activities, and provide feedback to learners. He emphasized upon the significance of body language, voice modulation, along with the use of Blackboard. In a nutshell, this presentation focused upon the various aspects of class observation and why teachers should consider these details while planning and teaching their classes. Once again, I thank Dr. Mubin Raza Khan for his prodigious presentation. Well, now this event is open for the participants. The participants may share their observations or ask questions to the esteemed presenter. Are there any questions for the participants? Okay, there is one here from Mr. Rajkumar Meena. Yeah, okay.
Does I am audible to all?
Yes, yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir,
please.
for a valuable session.
Thank you.
As a faculty member of English Department, BSR Arts College, I had an institutional question for you, sir.
Yeah, please.
If any institution wants to implement classroom observation, what should be the starting point?
Well, this is a very good question, and this is quite practical, question. And I would recommend that to start with, we should go with the peer observation, because inviting a professional observer would not be the best thing to do in the beginning. But since, for example, you have a department of 6 or 8 faculty, and whosoever you are most comfortable with, you can discuss the aspects that he should look at while you are teaching. You could invite him on a particular day when she is not teaching, and she should take notes, and then you can get her feedback on your performance, on the aspects that you wanted her to do, right? Or you can open up the class for the whole gamut of aspects. So the best thing would be to start with peer observation. Then the second stage should be to do informal observation, and you should have a committee of people who are experienced or who would like to read and get some training on classroom observation. That would be the second stage. Thank you. Dr. Ubaid, I am unable to hear you, please.
Yes. Unmute. It's not visible. No, no, visible. You are visible there. Is it okay now? Ah, yeah.
Yes, Dr. Bank. Dr. Mank is still muted. And Dr. Ubaid, you are also, yeah. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Could you hear me now? Yes, Dr. Raza?
Yeah, yeah. Now you're audible.
Okay, okay. You know, like when we know that somebody is observing us or we are being observed, we are not in our natural gesture that, in fact, we do not feel very comfortable. Like, like when you know that somebody is being observed, or there's somebody from outside, some experts or some administrator who is observing you in your class, so you do not feel very comfortable. This is something very natural for a teacher to feel so. So how can the teacher be assured that observation of teachers is not used for penalizing them, but for their professional development? Sometimes, yeah. So could you get my question?
Yes, Dr. Ubaid Akram Farooqi, this is a very good question and realistic question.
Okay.
Actually, for number one, there are 2 points. One is about the hesitation of teachers. The other is about the score of evaluation or observation not to be used for evaluation of the teacher. So regarding the first point, you see, when a teacher enters his class on the first day of the semester or first day of the academic year, all of the students are new for him, right? It takes about a day or two, maximum like 2-3 lectures, before she is able to develop that kind of rapport, right? That is why I suggested earlier, like in the first question, that if it is started with the peer observer, you know your friend, you know your teacher, right? So this initial hesitation will go away after 2 or 3 observations. It is quite natural. I mean, it happens to everyone and it happens to all of us, right? So it is quite natural to feel threatened. Now, coming to the second question, this is the responsibility of the principal, ma'am, right? She's here, head of the department. Dr. Junu Singh is also with us. Like if you have started class observation for self-appraisal, I mean, the institution head have to give a kind of assurance that this will not be taken for, taken into account for promotion or for confirmation. Maybe later when you develop the system, you can use this observation for a new faculty. So whosoever is joining in your college, say next year, if you have developed a system, they would know that this college has an evaluation system, which is their in-house system. So for the first year, anybody who is on probation would have to go through this. And the result of the evaluation, result of the class observation would be used for evaluation. This would not only improve the quality of teaching, but it would greatly benefit the reputation of your college.
Certainly. Yes. Do we have questions from the audience, Dr. Mayank? The participants? Yeah, could you pass them on to me so that I can ask him?
Yeah, Dr. Raja, I am Mayank Garg from
Yes, Dr. Mayank. Yeah. Welcome.
Well, you have covered almost all the areas of this topic. What I want to know is that too many, rules regarding the teaching of the professors and teachers. Will these things not hamper the natural teaching process, natural flow of the teacher? Because the teacher will become too much conscious about his expressions and lessons. I think these things may hamper the natural teaching.
Yes, Dr. Mayank, you have a very good question. And you see, when we get a call for interview, we go in our best attire, right? We have the best coat, best tie, best shirt, right? We prepare ourselves in advance for days because this is an appointed hour for us. Similarly, when class observation is done, class observation should always be intimated, right, to the teacher so that she prepares it well in advance, right? So on that particular day, the teacher, I agree with you, is not in her natural self. But we are not going to her every day. At the most, once in one semester. If you have 2 semesters, it will be like twice. She may not be, obviously she will not be natural, but what we are gaining is that she would go through the whole process. She would be aware of all these aspects, which would enhance her teaching, would, would make her a better teacher. And if we have for self-development, after the evaluation, in the feedback, the observer would tell her that, look, these are the points which you need to work on. And an institution, the committee which you would have, would also invite trainers to train your teachers on the particular aspects. For example, your 5 teachers had a problem of class management. So you will have a workshop on class management and you would invite those 5 teachers. For example, this month. Next month, you have a workshop on questioning techniques, right? And then you would invite those 5 teachers who have issue with that. And then you will go back to their class after 6 months and you will see what kind of changes they have, brought in their delivery of lesson, right? So I agree with you that it will not be natural, but one gets used to this. It takes time, but then one does not feel threatened. Trust me, you invite your friend to your class next week, and you see the changes. Once he goes out of the class, you would want him to come back to your class. Maybe after 2 weeks, you say, could you please come back to my class? I'll try to do this thing much better than I did last time. I've improved on that. With your feedback, I feel confident now. I did not realize this aspect, but oh, good. For example, something very light, the observer can tell you that while you are teaching, you shake your hands too much, right? Uh, you move like a soldier. This was the first comment I got in, I still remember, like when I was doing my certificate course in Hyderabad, CFL, now it is called FLU. That was like 30 years, yeah, almost 25 years back. So the first comment that I got from my colleagues, because the colleagues observe you, they said, Mubin, you walk like a soldier in the classroom. So like, you improve upon, by listening to these things. So thank you very much, Dr. Meng. Very valid point.
You would like to ask?
Thank you, sir, for satisfying my curiosity.
Thank you.
But, since we have become habitual of reading the feedbacks from our students' eyes, and from their behavior.
Right.
So these new tools will be very helpful to us and to all the teaching faculty. I request all the persons attending the webinar to ask questions if they wish to. And before that, they should, I would like to request them to unmute their mic first and then ask the question. They may put their question in the chat box also, so that our respected resource person may reply them one by one. Yeah. Is there any query from someone else?
You may take queries from the chat box, Mayank, if they are.
The queries.
Do you want to?
If there are any queries, if anyone wants to ask something, it will be put in the chat box. Or any other remark?
Would you like to? Okay. Dr. Rajkumar Meena would like to ask. He was very keenly listening to the keynote speaker, and so he has got too many queries. And there's another one.
Sir, my question is, are these aspects of teachers' evaluation relevant for only English language teaching, or they can be also applied to other subjects?
Yes, very good question indeed. Actually, this webinar was designed for English language teaching. That's why it had examples from English language teaching. But most of the aspects are true for other subjects, for science subjects, for commerce subjects. For example, if the presenter would have been from some science faculty, he would use examples and the lesson plan of the science faculty. But most of the things apart from the methodology, right, because language teaching is slightly different than because any language, it's not only English language, but any language uses certain methods, right? In like science teaching, uh, you know uh, generally you are imparting information, but then most of the traits of the teachers are also true with the science faculty, and also the questioning techniques are also true, right? There will be more elaboration on the board, right? The science teachers use more like board for illustration and all, but then everything is there, but in a different format. So there will be slightly tweaking.
I think that's enough. Thank you so much, Dr. Razak.
You're welcome. You are mute, Dr. Ubaid. Dr. Faruqi, you are mute. Could you please unmute yourself? I think it will be done from the host's computer,
Yeah.
maybe from, yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Mayangal is the host, in fact, and along with him, we have Mr. Rajen Nagar. The two of them are the technical experts.
Mashallah.
Yes, and I would say, yeah. In fact, you were talking about that the people from our generation aren't that good digitally. We are digitally knives. Okay, so that's why. And what do they do? Every now and then they put me on the mute mode. Okay. Yes, I really appreciate the way you handled the queries. They were very nicely responded to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And towards the end, I request Dr. PC Cambodia, Associate Professor of the Department of English, to please deliver a formal vote of thanks. Dr. PC Cambodia.
Sir, thank you so much. And your presentation has been scholarly. You touched upon several areas of teaching, electronic teaching, the issue of royalty, division of talk time in between the student and the teacher. Sir, once again, I realized that your queries were coming out of the very experience of your teaching. I am highly impressed by your personality and by your presentation. I express my sincere thanks to you for giving us your valuable time. I thank the principal of the college, Dr. Smita Mishra. I thank the head of our department, Dr. Junu Singh. I thank organizing secretary, Dr. U.A. Faruqi. I thank assistant convener of this webinar, Dr. S.S. Vedwan, and the coordinator, Dr. Mayank Rohtash Garg, and assistant coordinator, Dr. Rajkumar Ji Meena. Special thanks are due to N. Rajender Ji
and Dr. Bharat Singh ji and Dr. Mahesh Gotwar. Thanks are also due to the participants who made this webinar successful. Once again, thanks are due to Professor Mubin Raja Khan ji. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Even I would like to thank everybody
Thank
present
you.
here in this conference hall, and also who are watching us on the screens. I think again there is so much of disturbance. I'm sure Dr. Mubin Raza Khan would oblige us in future too. We shall invite him to share his
Inshallah.
presentation. Okay. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Okay. So
Sure.
thanks everybody. अब तो जाते हैं, मैं कदे से मीर, फिर मिलेंगे, गर खुदा लाया. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.